Hi, welcome to Linux channel. See, I was doing some consultation for my client. They are getting some issues in legacy kernel code, which they are finding issues in terms of getting it up and working in the newer kernels actually. So this is something I need to push all the way, something a old kernel compatible source to the latest Ubuntu LTS, almost the most recent Ubuntu LTS. So I was doing that porting stuff. There are so many places I need to do some ad hoc changes. Some are just minor changes, like a data structure or something like that. But there are also places where I still need to think what can I do about it. Then it occurred me that I have done even some couple of minor kernel port in my episode source code, which I have discussed in various video episodes, and time to time I do mention those kernel port changes which I have done in the Linux channel website articles. And as I always recommend, I request or suggest viewers or my students always to go through website articles and go through step by step whatever it is, then get an understanding and search for any topics, specific topics which you are looking for, and then see if there is something I have covered in the past, then you can get some idea about it. So this is one thing I have discussed a couple of times also in YouTube shorts and stuff, but again it has never been covered extensively. It is about what it takes to do kernel porting. So I decided, why don't I take a multi-episode video series. In this episode I discuss a few major aspects. Perhaps in the upcoming episodes we can do some live kernel porting and stuff in case something it occurs. But of course I can't do that with respect to my client source. It is somewhat confidential, but again if when case arises, then in the upcoming episodes more I can cover, perhaps even something like live coding and stuff. So hence if you are new to this channel or new to even Linux kernel development, and in case you stumble across the Linux channel, I request, rather than searching in YouTube and stuff, come to the website, pick a topic. There is also a case that I'm still porting some of the articles from the old website. It's been part of the topic project, from there to the exclusive Linux channel website. So some you may find in the old website, some you may find in new website, but eventually down the lane everything will be removed from the old website and it will be moved to this new website which you are looking over here. So you can see here a couple of instances I have done some minor ports. In this case it's about a kernel module to drop captured net filter hooks. The intention is how you are supposed to drop, how you are not supposed to drop. If you are not doing it in the right way, what are its consequences? So that's what I discussed in this episode. So if you are interested, you can go through this. I can link these article links in this video description. So if you come down, this is the source code. And also you can see recently I hosted GitHub, in case if you are looking any sample source code or something. These source code which I discussed in this video episodes and mentioned in these articles, you can also find in the GitHub with the entire make files and all relevant files with that. So you can see here, you can click and go to the GitHub and you can download from there. Anyway, the context is, you can see this I have covered around 2017. You can see here 9th Feb 2017. So during that time, whatever source code has been done, it's working fine. I can able to compile and get it working. But later when I was teaching for my students, and I'm taking this as example to get something else on top of it. So whenever I do this, even in some cases I was adding some some driver on this like a character driver or something on this or some proc along with this, and I'm doing some fusion of the things. As I take the classes, always I see that this code is not working as it is. So I have done some kernel porting. You can see here I have attached some small snippet at the end of the article. This is on 2019. So at that time the respective kernel is so and so, and there is a minor change in this API. You can see in netfilter register nethook. In this case it is taking 2 arguments instead of single argument which it used to take earlier. So of course you can find this issue when you do this compilation, you will get that error. So when you get that error, you can check, you can go here and go to this kernel source, go to the kernel source, and you can check what is the current situation with that API, why it is failing to compile. So you can go here, you have this header file and you have this implementation. First you can check the header file itself. Is there any changes in this function arguments and return values and things like that? Okay, you can see here. Sometimes you may also find the function may even vanish. They must have renamed the function as something else. So in that case, again, you need to port this code. You have to rename the function in your sample kernel module source as well. So situations can be possible. Okay, so you can see here it is this. So now it is taking 2 arguments. So I have done this small port. I requested anybody to download that code, do these changes, because that code as it is being discussed in the video, hence I don't want to edit it. Okay, so I have just untouched, I kept the source code intact, the same thing I pushed in GitHub as well intact, so that I don't want to do any porting, so that they learn the entire process. Okay, so you can see that. So this is one example. After you do this, you get it compiled, and I have put a note what should be done. You can see both in the case of register and unregister, you have to do this changes. So this is one thing, and the next thing is in the case of sample create and read a proc file. You don't believe, although I shot this episode around 2017, long ago, whenever I use this proc file system around 2012, things like that, somewhere in the middle there was a change in API structure and stuff. So this already is a new structure. In this, again, it demanded some couple of minor changes. So again, if you come down later, sometime I have shot one porting episode. You can see here, and I did some minor changes. This is 2021. The first episode or the series I shot on 2017, and there are many episodes I covered related to this proc file system. You can go through here. So you can find this kind of topic article categories. Go to this category and start reading or going through the articles from the bottom to the top, so that you can find the first one and then the next one and things like that. So similarly, this kernel porting stuff, I may create a new article category, and then I'll start posting this, and in future if I shoot more episodes, I'm going to add in that article category, so that viewers and students can go through sequentially. Okay, so you see here, let's come back to this porting thing. The first port I have done on 2021, you can see here, and I have done some minor change here and there, so which is what I have discussed in that video episode. So let's again not discuss what is in the video episode, which you can already find it over here, and you can go through the same. Okay, so this is one small minor port I have done. The next port I have done is, it just doesn't include any module author and this metadata. Okay, you can see the upper ones, this source code example doesn't have that metadata. Okay, so again it started giving me compilation error. Suddenly I was teaching someone, then it was not working. And sometimes it may be a case that viewers or students send me a mail or a WhatsApp message saying that this is happening and what can be done about it. They are mostly newcomers, guys who are learning kernel programming, so they are very new. They may not know the reason why it is not working just as it is the sample code which I have discussed in this YouTube episode and shared it over here. So hence I need to assist them. So anyway, since I am assisting them, I thought again take a follow-up. So in the third follow-up, or the second follow up after that first quoting, this is another quoting stuff. In this it's a very minor thing. I have just added this module description, module author and license details. With that it should compile and work fine. So you can see that there can be various reasons. So now coming to that scenario, I was doing some investigation for some client stuff, and I was going through some APIs. You can see here drivers net, IP VLAN and stuff like that. I was going through this IP VLAN core and some of this files. In this I can see that it is some point of time. You can see I was going through this change logs. Let me search. Yeah, I was going through this change logs, and I found that they are doing some changes like this. See, in this case, IP local out, earlier it is net and SKB of socket or something like that, SKB of SK, and they are passing this SKB. In the case of second diff, I mean in the case of changed code or the modified code, you can see they are doing this net, and instead of this they are passing this null context and then this SKB. So in this case there is a change in the way they call these arguments. Okay. Similarly, you can see here IP6 local out. In this case it is a V6 stack, hopefully. In the case of V6 they are doing this sort of a change. So something like this I was reading out, and I was also seeing is there any fundamentally changes done in the API and stuff. So along with that I was also going through some other diffs over here. Like net IP before TCP. Again, is there any changes are done and stuff. Okay. So this is something related to something I'm working. So in this case you can see there is a if condition. They have added some OR clause. Earlier it is just TCP established, now it is or it is also TCP close wait, then do something. So you can see this is removed, this is added. So this way if you are doing some porting, sometimes it is very minor, as I showed in the my own personal website articles. In this case it is just a minor API change, so change that API. But again there are cases you may not figure out why it has been changed and what now I can add this argument value. So in this case it is simple. The reason they have changed this API itself is in fact if you see this is also a change of API name as well. So you can see earlier it is NF register hook, now it is completely renamed as NF register net hook. So why there is a change in API name? So the reason they have done is we can see that the more network namespaces are prevalent now, so they have done a lot of changes in the network stack, Linux kernel network stack, to accommodate that namespaces. Hence you can see this, and in this case we are passing this inet net. It is actually a global context variable, so it's a global variable, and we are passing that context over here. So which tells that it is doing it in the root network namespace. So generally what you do is if you do this if config, whatever you find here is this default root network namespace. So that's what we should consider, since now namespaces are prevalent in Linux networking stack. So you can see, hence suppose if your code is not working, go through that, go through first of all if that API is still existing. You can even do this. If you do a general Google search, you will find the references, but if you go to this kernel source and do the API search, you no longer get that API name. So versus if you go down here, say version 2, version 3, something like this, and if you do the same search, hopefully you should be able to get it, or otherwise I can do in some other way. Just go freshly, go to this say v4, pick any version 4.2017, and here you do the search. Hopefully you should get a match. Yeah, it's taking time. See, it is not coming up, So in that case, maybe a bit older version, v3, something like this. I'm just arbitrarily, randomly finding some version, versus in your case you can do much systematic search. So let's see, and you can see here 3.x, some version 3.13.11 kernel. You can see the API name is this. So you can see that if there is any name change, sometimes you can see in the internet, is there any announcements for popular APIs. Sometimes you may find in some news, Linux news articles about some references about that, in case if it is a major change, because it changes the entire architectural scope of that change. Okay, you can go through that. So you can see in this case it is a name change of that variable, and also they have added a parameter. So it can be, usually these API changes are quite common. Something is getting added, something is changed, change in the return value. Earlier they must have done just a return of integer. Now they may entirely return a data structure itself, a struct or something like that, or some enumerated type actually instead of just integer. So it can be that, it can be this API name changes, sometimes it can be argument changes, sometimes it can be argument types as well. Earlier it may be some argument, now they must have changed the entire data structure, and in case that data structure itself is changed, then everywhere they have to change that, those things actually. See, for instance, it is taking this nf hook ops. Let's assume they have changed the name of this API. Name of this data structure or this struct itself. Then obviously you need to make your code compatible for that. So you have to port your code. So sometimes, as you can see, it can be a data structure changes. You are doing some code, and let's say we take this struct, and in this struct you can see these member variables. And they must have added something, they must have removed something, they must have renamed something, they must have actually done some type changes of this data structure itself. Earlier it is U8, now it may be U16, here it is unsigned int, now it may be unsigned short, or something else. It may be just int here, but suddenly they must have changed to some data structure actually. So these kind of cases, you need to check data structure changes, API changes, name changes, or type changes, API type changes, data structure type changes, things like that. So sometimes they must have added some helper API, so that you don't get into some kind of error conditions and something. So perhaps instead of calling that API directly, suppose you are calling this API, and now they have done some change where you need to check some context. If this context exists, then call this API. So they have added some API as an additional binding API. So something like that is there. You have to check once if something has been done. So there is a tip I can give is this porting is, most of the times you just need to use not just your intelligence, it's just your common sense. So if you do find any incompatible code, I recommend check all these aspects, go through various diffs. Okay, go through various diffs of that version, the previous your working version versus next version, and then again go ahead couple of versions, and then again check is there any changes over there, and find the version which it is completely changed, the previous one versus the next one. So what I meant is, see, one more thing, as this is why I recommend, if you want to discuss anything, you send sometimes a mail. Yeah, of course, students are fine. They do send their queries in WhatsApp, and sometimes I tell that all these queries we discuss in this upcoming next session. Anyway, they get unlimited classes and unlimited topics. Okay, because they join as a lifetime mentorship. So anyway, in case if you are just a new viewer, I recommend that sometimes if you can't just describe something in YouTube comment, always feel free to send a mail, so that you can send any screenshots and stuff. If it is so minor, perhaps I can help. If it is quite complicated, then perhaps we need to think, or perhaps you can come for a one-time paid session or something like that. Okay. So again, that doesn't mean that I sit and work on an entire project. So it's not like that. I'm just saying, if you're a random viewer, if you're stuck somewhere, and in case we can able to get some clues, and perhaps I can give some clues, and if you find that you need seriously some help to get going, then you can feel free to reach me. And I generally prefer mail, so that you can send your issues, description, etc., and then also you can include some screenshots. So what I meant here is, let's imagine you have this kernel timeline, and you have done some compatible code at this point of time, and let's imagine they have done some code changes. Let's represent in a different color. They have done some code changes in this timeline. This is say this is after, say, for example, this is after 1.5 years of span. Okay, so they have done some code changes, and then after say 6 months later, they have done again some code changes. So let's put this in this way. So they have done some code changes again here. So let's assume your code, which is perfectly working fine, and yeah, this is sometime after 6 months. I mean to say, this is after 6 months, this is after 1.5 years, and now you are here. Okay, you want to do some code changes here, or you want to port this code into this kernel version. So now you got a code which is fairly old. Let's take this entire time span as something like 3 years or something like that. Just we assume it is some 3 years, and now you got a kernel code which is around 3 years old, and you want to port it to some kernel of over this timeline, versus the current mainline kernel is at this timeline. Okay, so this is now, and this is your target kernel version. This is your target kernel version, and this is the module which is done long back. So in case if you try porting this directly onto this new one, you may find issues. So this is what I was trying to say orally, but again I thought it is difficult to understand. Then I thought, let me put some illustrations for you guys to understand. So if you try to port something that old to this newer kernel, you may find lot more issues and confusing. I can recommend perhaps see when the diff has happened, and it has happened over this era. If possible, if the time permits, you can perhaps port it over to this kernel, and see you can able to compile it. Okay, and you can even, if possible, it is not so complicated, you can do some test as well. See that if you can get it working. Okay, so one milestone is complete. The next milestone is you need to now make it compatible to this newer kernel. So now you can see here there is another major change or minor change, something happened here, listed down. This can be a different change, some API something changed, this can be some data structures changed, and this may be a minor change. This purple one could be a minor change, and this red one could be a minor change, versus this is a major change. So now you can slowly port this kernel to this version, or you can directly port to this version. So you can go step by step. In case if you try to port all the way over here, you may find some hurdles. So again, this is again case by case basis, depends on how big is your kernel module or your driver itself is. If it is a minor change, it's fine, you can directly jump to this newer kernel and you can do the changes. But if it is a very complicated code, and it is in fact written by somebody else, okay, and you have recently joined, or you are now started maintaining the same, then you can go step by step this way. Again, there is no hard rule about it. This is just my common sense. If I am in that situation, if I am in your shoes, perhaps I may do this way to reduce this complexity. Otherwise I will be clueless what to start, where to start. If I get some 30-40 errors, all these are ad hoc errors, not just related to one data structure alone. Many cases, many places it is throwing some errors. Then I may do this in a way, and what I illustrated is a common scenario, but you can extrapolate that complexity. You can have many changes here and there over the span of period, in that case, this entire porting becomes quite tricky. So that's what it is. So I felt this episode I covered this basic aspects of kernel code porting, and the challenges you find, and what you can expect in general, so that this gives you a big picture. As I said, the idea is I may cover more episodes on this topic with more live examples and stuff, as and when, if in anything interesting it comes to my desk. Okay, so as I said, if you have any queries, feel free to discuss via mail. At times WhatsApp is okay, but again mail is much better, where we can keep a track of our conversation. In case if it is a very minor queries, you can discuss always in YouTube comments. So stay in touch. Thanks a lot for watching the Linux channel. Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye bye.